God damn it. Go ahead, just Tim always does this. He always black hole, the gravitational pull of black holes, so starting mind and light can escape the pupils of the black hole. Now resist the stars are orbiting around. The black holes, my ass, my mouth, my penis, and your eyes consuming me. There's a world that exists outside of our conventional thinking, a plane of existence that is far since the sea, the normal social hierarchy generates at time, but most importantly, gravity. For the world exists within a tesseract, which is a pocket dimension that sits outside of our universe at the heart of a black hole. Within the black hole, flow time is not limited to one direction. Gravity is something we can hold and melt the tip of our fingers. Reality is something that's been warped exponentially to open up existence with truly infinite possibilities. Times like male and female, fluid and ever changing. Color of one skin is no longer an indicator of any specific ontology. Members of this vibrant and peaceful community have established a life for themselves and lived in harmony for about a year. However, the relative time of a black hole is out on Earth is quite different. 1 year in the black hole has been 7 years back on Earth. You're in, shine bright, shine far, be a star. Where you live, where you are, be a star. Shine bright, don't be shy, be a star. Only gravity of general relativity, first in the force of gravitation, be so great that not even light would be able to escape from it. Rays falling back down to a star like a stone to the earth, secondly, the red shift of the spectral line would be so great that the spectrum would be shifted out of existence. Thirdly, the matter would do so much curvature of space-time metric that space would close up around the star, leaving us outside, i.e. nowhere. Earth's now raises a wasteland with resources being commodified and blasted out unfairly. Breathable air cells for 499 takes all people color elected to leave Earth and live in a black hole. Earth is being comprised of white people about 3 years after the people color left Earth. White people had no indigenous communities to hold to destruction of land, no one to fight against the social hierarchy that was soon to come because none of the white people had experienced it. Became time for their computerization. Whether we're clueless, whiteness always found a way to otherize a group of people for the new earth. The divide came in a number of ways. First was against queer and trans individuals. Second wave was against women. The third was against the poor. The final was against the bodies that cannot produce enough labor to sustain the planet Earth, continue on its act of perpetual hate and destruction, and the people of a higher plane could only watch and pity. Your spectral line meets the spectrality. House 2011. The purpose is not even nonsensical to hearing my argument for nonsensical or non-conceptual or over-sense making structure that are often embedded in a common notion of ethics. Naive or ignorant may in fact lead to a different set of knowledge practice certain requires of something called oppositional pedagogy. In pursuit of these pedagogies, we must realize that ignorance is multiple and multiple things, and often learning often takes place completely independent of teaching. In fact, to be personally for a moment, I'm not sure myself I'm teaching someone's name and an example who's trying to try without much success becoming fluent in another language to read a book without taking much at all. I realized I can only learn to teach myself, and that much while I was taught in school left very little impression upon me at all. In the film, a white school teacher tries to retell to his disinterested and profoundly alienated, mostly African, Asian, Arab immigrant students. The cultural and racial clash between the teacher and the students make effective communication difficult. His cultural references, Diamond, Frank, Moliere, French grammar, these students cold, while their soccer, Islam, hip-hop, reduce only paying responses from their otherwise personable teacher. At the end of the film, an extraordinary moment occurs. He asks students to think about one thing they've learned from the class. We're going to write down one thing to take away from the class, one concept, test, or idea that might make a difference. Then the class disperses and one girl steps up to the front. The teacher looks at her and jobs are common. I didn't learn anything, she tells us, without malice or anger. Nothing. I can't think of anything I learned at all. This is a moment of defeat for the teacher and disappointment for the viewer who wants to believe in the narrative educational uplift of the triumph of alternative pedagogy, because it reminds us that educational uplift is a triumph. It is a two-way street, and learning you cannot teach without a dialectic relationship to the learner. I didn't learn anything and be an endorsement by another French textbook by Jacques Rancière on the politics of knowledge. Drawing from students who only spoke Flemish, Rancière sees the claim that the visual discipline-based pedagogy demands the presence of a master and proposes a mode of learning by which the students have enlightened also by superior fear and knowledge, superior fear, intelligence, and the intellect of a schoolmaster. In the case of Justice Alcala, his experience with students of Brussels, talking that the belief in the necessity of explication and exercise was false and simply upheld a university system dependent on hierarchy. When Jacques realized that students were learning to read and speak French and understand the text without his assistant, he began seeing non-citizen investment in his own function. He was not a good teacher, right? Because he was not a bad teacher, become a good teacher. Right? He was a good teacher who realized that people must be led to learn rather than taught to follow. Like all conscious professors, he knew the teacher was not science about cramming students with knowledge and having them repeat like parrots. But he knew equally well the students had to avoid the chance to remind them capable of distinguishing the accessory from the accessory. The principle of consequence get lost while the good teacher leads the students along the pathway of rationality. The ignorant schoolmaster must actually allow them to get lost in order for them to experience confusion and find their own way out or back around. Ignorant schoolmaster advocates the anti-disciplinary ways and elementary forms of knowledge that do not depend on overtraining popularity and obeying children out of doctrines into the light. Dr. summarizes pedagogy, thus I'm a teacher, I have nothing to teach you. In this way, he allows the elders to teach themselves to learn without internalizing a system of superior fear and knowledge, superior fear and intelligence. Like pedagogy, which argues against the banking system of teaching for a dialogical mode of learning, which enacts the practice of freedom. Dr. embraces education as social transformation and as mutually dependent. When we are taught that we cannot know things unless we are taught by great minds, we submit to a whole suite of unfree classes that take on the former colonial relation for 2000. They're self-responsible, possible colonial relation for formation. A violent response to all France when I was claiming the violent position of colonial rule must be met with violent resistance. A homeopathic response to which the knowing learns the dominant system, better application and undermines from within, or the negative response to which the knowing subject refuses to be knowledge offered and refuses to be a knowing subject in form mandated by alignment philosophers of self and other. In this book, in the book of sympathy of the violent negative forms of anti-colonial knowing that builds on honeymoon's opposition in University of Society incarcerated knowledge and project subjugated through the knowledge, I propose a third thesis, subject memorization, while it seems commonsensical to produce new false memory about homophobia, racism, and contemporary text, literary, theoretical, actually argue against memorization. Memorialization has a tendency to tidy up disorderly history. Memory itself is a disciplinary evolutionary mechanism for getting becomes a way of resisting and heroic and grand logic, recall and unleashing a new form of memory that relate more to spectrality than the hard evidence and logic genealogy, standing on inheritance and erasure than to inscription. The black hole is evil, it's most pure and everything around it, cooling light, and crushes beyond comprehension. The beauty of that is universal and parallel, and it's unavoidable. We have no choice but to embrace Harmon 13. The seller having settled for politics on himself in the name of civilization, while critiques initiates the self-defense of those who see hostility in the settlement of the youth and of the culture. We say rightly if our eyes are critically sharp enough, and it's evil and cool to have a place in the dirty sentence of the atmosphere. If our eyes are critical sharp enough, we put the fodder out of the trail. We can put the police on trial and look for politics in order to avoid it. We move next to each other so we can be beside each other. Critique lets us know that politics is radioactive. The politics of radiation is critique, so it matters how long we have to do it and how long we have to be exposed to the lethal effects of antisocial energy. Critique endangered sociality is supposed to defend because it will turn to politics, then turn outward and form the forefront around where not for preservation, given the celebration where we defend the social pact and force we back tightly around it, taking our critique in our own position and fortification and self-defense alloyed with self-preservation. We run looking for a weapon and keep running, looking and dropping. We can drop because however art the enemy we faces is also illusory. Uncultivated to critique evolution makes us illusion. The trick of policy we get insufficient scarce waiting in pockets of resistance. There was alleys of vain. We already here moving, we're around. We more than politics, we're more than settled. We surround democracy's image in order to settle it. Every time we decide and close this decision, we're undecided. Every time to represent our will, we're unwilling. Every time to take root, we're gone. We ask, we tell, we cast spell that we are under. We tell us how to move and how to dance and how we shall be in the war of opposition and critical career in the clear critical light of day and illusory ministers whisper in our ear the need for institution and all institutions are politics and all politics is correctional. So it seems we need correctional institution and common settling correcting us. Incorrect as we are, there's nothing wrong with us. We don't want to be corrected, we don't want to be corrected. Politics proposes to make us better. We were good in a mutual death that can never be made good. We owe it to each other to falsify the institution, make politics incorrect and give lie to our own determination. We owe each other the indeterminate, we owe each other everything. In application of political responsibility, okay, we less anti-politically romantic about actually existing social life. We are responsible for politics. But rather we are the general antagonists of politics, looming outside every attempt to politicize every imposition of self-governance, every solemn decision and great miniature, every emergent state and home sweet home, every disruption and conceptual disruption. We preserve our people and self to fulfill by abolishing, to renew the unsettling by opening and closure whose immeasurable finality is inversely proportional to its actual area. We got politics surrounded. We cannot represent ourselves. We cannot be represented. Thus, Tay and I affirm the gravity of being a problem. Swag. Paragraph 13. The critical academic university in the circle of the American state questions university claims to be critical negligence of the university and labor upon labor and labor upon labor and labor upon the unprofessionals under the university sponsor role in retreat and relief. Does labor of the critical academic not invoke a mockery of the first labor performance that is final in its lack of concern for what it parodies negligent? Does the question of a critical academic not become a classification or put it plainly? Does the critical academic not teach how to precisely deny what one produces with the other? And it's not the lesson of the professions return to the university again and again. And the critical academic did not dedicate what Michael Brown termed the empowerment and administration of society's cooperative processes. This enlightenment type charade is utterly negligent. It's critique is negligence that disavows the possibility of a thought of an outside non-place called the undercommons. We must speak to these critical academics because negligence turns out as a major crime in the state. Paragraph 13. The violence of blackness is inseparable from the beauty of blackness. Violence is where technique and beauty come back together. Have never left. There's nothing wrong with the notion manifests primarily in long, slow motion deters the seriously tragical, pleasurable deters of the immediate improvisation, which is something not but almost nothing other than spontaneous. So we've been trying to find how to come because common sense unnecessarily fail administrative accounting of the incalculable. That's objective of enlightenment, self-control, trying to get with the only common sensuality radical occupied elsewhere. The utopic common underground dystopia defunct up here and now. This anacentric particularity that we occupy with which we are preoccupied. When exploring the black market underside of this constant economy of misrecognition and misery cognition, it will be possible to discover that formal and informal giving pleasure of the content economy because we're in love with the way that we beat the sunlight, dietetic circles, flies the handle, how event music full of color blows up the event horizon, and sound waves of black hole carry flavorful pictures to touch, how the only way to get with them is to sense them. The information can never be lost. It can only be irrevocably given a chance. Some people want to run, other people want to run things. If they actually tell them that we are flying, knowledge is freedom and the adventure of escaping stealing away from the confines in the form of a break, and this is how close an open song the one show is supposed to be silent.
Peace. I love bad bitches, not my fucking problem. And yeah, I like the fuck, I got a fucking problem. I love bad bitches, not my fucking problem. And yeah, I like the fuck, I got a fucking problem. I love bad bitches, not my fucking problem. And yeah, I like the fuck, I got a fucking problem. If finding somebody real is your fucking problem, bring your girls to the crib, maybe we can solve. Oh, I know you love it when this beat is on. Make you think about all of the niggas you been leading on. Make me think of.
What's up?
Alright, ready?
Yeah.
Alright, what does it mean to be a star?
In terms of like the concept of the one they see being a star, it's just like being that not necessarily illuminating, because like I mean you could believe that they produce like a light or like a visuality, but actually it's just like being what you believe you are in any mode of what that means, affirming yourself.
Being a star is being who you believe you are in any mode is what you're saying. So we will accept whoever says they are a star, however they claim to be a star, we will accept them as fact.
No.
So So then,
I don't
how
know
do
why
we
that would be true of the 1AC. We've affirmed a method, right?
yeah,
which is
no, I'm trying to
affirm
figure out what that
gravity of
method
being
means
a
in context of
problem.
becoming or being a star. Does one become a star? Is one already a star?
Well, think about the relationship between stars and black holes, and I think that could get you closer to the answer.
I
right?
don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Well, the two are directly correlated. I mean, becoming stars are always in the process of becoming black holes, and black holes originate from stars, so the two are co-constitutive.
Okay, cool. Is the black hole only you, or are other black people also black holes?
Well, the black hole is a new type of sociality. It's a metaphor for the ways in which, like, we engage with each other. It's like
It's a metaphor for how we engage with each other. Who is we?
we as people, humans.
Okay. What is a human or a people or a person?
I mean, I don't really define that. We say that there is a definition of that has been holistically violent in the squad.
Yes. What is the new definition which you have produced?
Well, it's not necessarily a new definition. We just say that we should have a different relationship to each other.
I don't even know what the each other is, but we'll move on. You indicate that Earth has been as per the new world that you created, the Earth has been destructed. But after that, you said that the Earth still has hate and destruction. If every black person is no longer a part of Earth and that there's a problem, who does the white people who are now stuck on Earth hate, and who do they destroy?
We already said that whiteness is always in the process of destroying other things, like
Yeah,
destroying
but you've
things
indicated
otherwise.
that all the other has already been moved to the new world. So what are they hating or
We
destroying?
don't
They
say
produced
that-
others.
They produce others, so the white people become the others then.
Yeah, so
So
the
then
examples,
do the white
examples
people-
Khalil gives in the 1AC are queers and trans people, women, the poor, disabled people.
But I thought
who are
all those people
white,
could join us
but
in the
who are-
black hole.
Well, those are all
Mm.
white people, so they're all
Yeah.
abject.
Oh,
right?
so the
According to
queers
the
and
way
all of
that-
those people stay in the world.
The white-
only,
the
the
white-
white
Yeah,
queers,
because
all
whiteness
of the
has
people
the
stay in
whiteness
the
has the
world.
ability to
Okay,
jump
okay,
in and out
okay.
of modes of oppression whenever it feels fit.
Howard Snap indicates that there is there needs to be an oppositional pedagogy. What is your oppositional pedagogy, and two, what does it mean to be oppositional?
Oppositional pedagogy, well, our oppositional pedagogy is like deteriorating or like disarticulating that narrative or dichotomy between
Okay.
superior knowledge
What
and
does it mean to be
practices. It
oppositional?
means that no one is necessarily
I-
good, no
what
one
is
is
it? I'm
necessarily
gonna ask-
bad. It means that we can engage in like a
I got
weird
10 seconds.
sociality.
I need to ask
Yes.
this question because I still don't know what oppositional pedagogy means. But
I think we're explaining it pretty clearly. You're trying to just frame the app
why
as
vote
vague.
AF?
What?
Why vote AF?
Because it's a new type of sociality by which we don't like hold each other to these fucked up standards. So it's
Okay,
like civil
because it's a
society.
new sociality where we don't hold each other to these fucked up standards.
Yeah, you can use whatever tone you want. Won't change the fact that we're gonna win this debate like I won the last one.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the one to respond to the email chain then, the NDT thing, or I don't think I got the.
Could you do a different email for Khalil though,
Yes.
on the NDT one?
Because they send it to my UVM email, which I
Sure,
don't check.
but I actually, I don't know if I got that.
I'm about to give it.
They only send that to the app,
I'm about to give it to you.
the NDT stuff of
I'm
everybody.
about to give you my email.
Well, I don't think they only send it to the app. I flow one of them on case.
You should, if you're gonna do it, you should flow the second off.
Yeah.
Case.
How many?
Two off.
Did anybody else need pens?
What size are your pens? This is random. I have pens, but
Size?
yeah, are they? It don't matter. I have pens. I just.
Okay.
No, hold on. Sorry. My bad, Tom.
It's all right. It's okay.
Okay. You're all good. First off, interpretation, the affirmative must defend a contingent form of freedom, military presence. Military presence is non-combat presence. Thomason, in two military presence consists of all U.S. military assets in overseas areas that are engaged in relatively routine, regular, non-combat activities or functions. The variety of recurrent overseas military activities normally placed under the umbrella concept of military presence include U.S. military efforts to gain intelligence in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Blackbird, and Gamble. In 12, the Arab states of the Persian Gulf, including Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman. The violation of the affirmative doesn't defend a contingent form of freedom. Standards A is ground. The affirmative simply theorizes without offering an actionable thought experiment. This destroys the possibility of contestability. We are stuck with making less than adequate critiques of the affirmative because they defend a theory that is all-encompassing. B is black debate. Debate offers the possibility of being able to discuss real-world strategies to deal with everyday ramifications of anti-blackness. The affirmative's deployment of pessimism gets stuck. Theorizing blackness fails to offer viable strategies. This leaves the people outside of this room helpless. C is switch side debate. They can read their app in the negative, solves all their often. Switch side debate is key to social justice. Undermining switch side debate destroys critical activism. Debating both sides empirically creates powerful coalitions below. In 5, there can be agents. We only be they're in conflict. This is crucial analysis. Opposition between different political and social agendas is perfect for emergence of mediators shuttling back and forth between contending groups. The group agents occupy middle ground in the best position to make hegemonic institutions sensitive to emancipatory aims. The further agendas promoting democratization and invitations, democracy, cynicism, epistemology, the untenable. It is not an issue of character. And switch side debate is key to offer the possibility of infusing solutions to material problems that the black community faces. Switch side debate is good at developing understanding of a world that is bigger than you. There are a plethora of textures of blackness that exist in the world that is only learned when we address specific concerns. The affirmative dependence on theorizing blackness is ahistoric and fails to deal with a black radical tradition that actually grounds their advocacy. Switch side debate is a contextualized resolutional discussions. It's critical to deal with a material conservatism to move away from the resolution is call upon the end of the debate community. B, debate community is good, key to help black people get affordable education. C, debate community is good because it's a place of kinship that helps to teach young black adults how to navigate not just the academy but life. And debate community is good. It fosters friendship relationship that helps people remove themselves from violent socioeconomic setting. And D, topic specific education is good. This year's particular topic helps to shed light on militaristic policies and patterns of the USFG to engage in topics to interrogate ways to liberate black people from the contingent forms of anti-blackness, policing, surveillance, pre-industrial conflicts, militarism, and military voluntarism. And E, it is key to avoiding petty debates. This is key to maintaining communal ethic to work towards solutions to deconstructing white supremacy. Topicality is a voting issue for competitive equity and education. Without the ability to test the affirmative, we don't have the ability to learn how to strategize against anti-black policies and policing practices. Topicality is a question of materiality. The affirmative fails to offer a strategy to solve for racist practices. And next off.
I met God the other day, and this is what I had to say. But first, my thoughts along the way. You see, to me, the subjective thoughts of freedom that I've had most of my life have been all a reinstatement of a common notion that there really is no difference between right and wrong, and what's wrong to me is right to you, and what's wrong in God's eyes is just another perspective too. And I've told myself that we are all living proof that the truth of real freedom is to simply have a freedom of truth. But then I suppose that if this isn't true, then we are all just finger puppets, and God is scoring both me and you. And if that is true, well then screw her too. Forget her laws, forget the Bible, forget the Catholics, forget the Jews, forget anyone who doesn't think about the Lord's name, forget her 10 commandments, and forget those about shining her name in vain. Seriously though, either way, whether freedom is an absolute or in a facade of a God-made human brain, I say do what feels good and enjoy the now and today. And so what did I do along the way to meeting God, you say? brace yourself, because this is what I had to say straight to her face. She said, "Hello, my child. How are you feeling today?" And I said, "God, I feel freaking great. This life was more than just okay. I mean, you know what I did along the way, but hear it from my mouth and lack of convictions on my words to this day. I listened to loud music and damaged my ears for years. I filled my lungs with toxic clouds of smoke, sleeping like dope, contemplating consequences, but treated them like those. I damaged my brain with an array of narcotics, subjecting myself to a list of voodoo tonics. Sometimes it's pure demonic stuff, and I loved every second of it to the point where I altered my already imbalanced chemicals beyond repair. There I said it, and I was out there for you to judge. To you, I'm probably just the antichrist, and dang, it feels nice. I pierced, stressed, and wounded my skin to the shape of my former scars was beyond any contemplate, relating all to such expedition of self-expression. That right there don't seem like I feel like a big mistake to none. I mean, none of this does, at least not to me at the time. And what else is there besides the now, and what else is there is more supplying? And God said,
resistance and blackness have become interchangeable in their goal of liberation of the public sphere. Such a conflation maintains anti-blackness and black inferiority quashi in 12 concepts of quiet shift and how we commonly understand blackness, which is often described as expressive, dramatic, loud things, qualities inherently reflect the equivalence between resistance, blackness, resistance, the dominant expectation we have of black culture. Blackness is not a term of intimacy, but a publicness. The public representation where black subjectivity exists for its social and political meaningfulness rather than a remarkable human individuality. The person who is black, blackness is always supposed to tell us something about race or America or violence and hopefulness. The determination to see blackness only through a social public lens, as if there were no inner life. If racist, it comes from the language of racial superiority to practice intended to dehumanize black people. Common frameworks for thinking about blackness are limited. Resistance is too broad a term, not nuanced enough to characterize the totality of black cultural expression. Black women's everyday lives was not shifting entirely about their engagement with it, and resistance to the institution of slavery. The point here is not to dismiss the intensity and vulgarity of slavery's violence on black people, but instead to restore a broad picture of the humanity of people who were enslaved. The case for quiet is an argument against the limits of blackness as a concept, as an everyday word, but it is also conceptual. The notion of quiet is neither emotionless nor without sound. Quiet is a metaphor for the full range of one's inner life, one's desires, ambitions, hungers, vulnerabilities, fears. The end of life is not apolitical without social value, but neither is it determined entirely by publicness. Quiet is inevitable, is already here. The aesthetic of quiet is not incompatible with black culture, but notice and understanding requires a shift. Quiet is antithetical to how we understand black culture and how we think about black culture, black people. Racial blackness imagines black people as public subjects with identity formed, articulated, and resisted. In public, such blackness is dramatic, symbolic, never for its own vagary, almost representative, engaged with it, and how it is imagined publicly. These characterizations, the legacy of racism, they become the common way we understand and represent blackness. The idea of quiet can shift attention to what is interior of the shift, can feel like a kind of heresy. The interior is thought of as apolitical and express and distinguish the term expression of the notion of public. The interior can be understood as a source of human action, that anything we do is shift the range of desires, capacities, our inner life. The intent here is not to disregard these terms, but to ask what else can we say about black culture? How can quiet, as a frame for reading black culture, expose life that is not really determined by narrative the social world? Living is apolitical, but all living is not in protest. To assume such is to disregard the richness of life. And black resistance based on cultural representation, such as signifying doubleness and the mass solidified image of publicity that flattens out oppression and allows for the continuation of blackness. It's ontologically void. Quashi and 12 black cultures over-identified with the idea of expression that is geared toward a social audience that is politically aimed. Expressing is the essence of black resistance. Resistance are definitive of black culture. The effect of the role the public sphere is play. Ideas about racial superiority for a formula that are articulated in public discourse and enacted in public spaces make sense. A public sense of active and a location would be integral to the struggle for racial equality. Black culture has been characterized largely by its response to racial dominance, so much so that resistance becomes a deadening feature of expectation. Notions that inform how we think about black subjectivity, which is necessarily contrary and seemingly lacking in inner life. One result of dominance is that the major concepts used to discuss black culture engage learning the capacity to support the idea of resistance. These concepts say less and less of the interior of black subjectivity leaves without a general conception that can characterize the inner life. Now, the black subject seems to possess no interior. We're speaking of that in response to how they were negatively constructed the social imagination. Racial, gendered, and class subjects. Black women as a rule developed in the hero called the secrecy to protect the sanctity of inner life, inner aspects of their lives. The dynamics of semblance involve creating the appearance of disclosure or openness about themselves. The fields while actually remaining an enigma in the face of pervasive stereotypes. It's imperative that they collectively create alternative self-image. The interior presence is suppressed because of the public dimensions of race and gender and sex, the withholding the silence that is implied. Celebrates kind of artifice or performance that reiterates the centrality of public black cultural identity, dissemblance, and double consciousness seem primed to help us scrutinize the suppressed textualities of black identity. Trossix.
Second. Who's God?
I am God.
Okay, and is God ever present? Is God ubiquitous?
I am God.
What do you know as God?
I know that I'm God.
Is God all-knowing?
God is Vita.
Is Vita all-knowing?
Vita is God.
Do the two know how to answer the question?
I
In
think
yes
God.
or no formats?
I think God.
Am I allowed to
just
change
answers
concepts
that.
or just yes or no?
I think
Can I do
God
that?
just. I
Okay,
think that was a very
is
clear
God
answer.
all-knowing? Is God limited? Is God expansive? Is God what?
God is Vita and Vita is God.
Is
Vita,
Vita-
this is not responsive. Could
I
you
think it
please
really
answer
is
the
actually.
question?
I am answering the question. Vita is God and God is Vita.
Well, what does being God mean to Vita?
What does being God mean to? It means being myself.
Well, Khalil needs to understand the ways in which Vita plans to win this debate if Vita cannot interpret what God and what that means in the context of the space.
To interpret what God means. I think I will re-ask that question. Why do I need to interpret what God's mean in a world where I've said that I am God?
Well, if you're looking in the mirror face to face with God, like how in the world do you know what you're looking at?
Because I know I'm God.
Okay. Cool. You need to calm down for a second, because I almost like. Okay, so your Kwashi evidence talks about how black culture is over-identified towards a political audience. What does that mean?
Right, so the idea is that
Of course
black
Tim would
culture
answer
has
this
always
question.
been, this is the theoretical answer to the question that you're giving. This,
Go for it,
sure,
Tim.
Sure, this is a link to
You
your
know.
presentation of criticism, in that the criticism was a presentation of a form of black expression or black resistance, which Kwashi would say is inevitably tied to the question of like
If
a
y'all give
homogenized
me a
image of
roundabout
blackness as
answer one more time, if
resistance.
I hear the word question 3 times in a row, one more time.
You just want me
Can
to
you
answer
just
without
tell
saying
me
the
what
word
that
question?
means? Just tell me what it means.
What means?
Like, simplify it for me. Like, pretend I'm in first grade real quick. Just tell me what it means that like blackness is like always being always being performed towards a political audience.
So I don't know why we'd be talking about blackness to first graders, but the way that
Well, I
yeah,
was
the
talking
way
about
that
blackness in
happens
first grade.
is that there is a certain kind of like status quo interpolation of blackness as resistance, which is like a homogenized view of how blackness exists in white society. When the affirmative has a performance that kind of like feeds into that, it means that it takes away from the inherent humanity in black people, is what Kwashi is saying. That historically, that has always been used to homogenize and erase black people, in that blackness is always
Is
public
Vita
and
becoming
takes
God?
away
Is
from the
Vita being God a
interiority
form
of
of suicide
blackness.
debate?
What?
Is Vita being God a form of suicide debate?
Yes.
How so?
Because Vita is negative and God indicates that your app is bad.
So now God can stand for something.
Because Vita is God and
Is-
Vita say your
but
app
Vita
is
is
bad.
also Ath in some rounds, so I need to understand.
Yes.
Is Vita everywhere?
Vita is God.
So Vita is the Ath as well?
No, because nigga get app bad.
I'm gonna
I'm
take
confused.
trip.
Same here.
I'm not gonna fuck up y'all flow, and I'm really gonna tell y'all what size I'm doing. So I don't know if that means you internally need to switch over flows or whatnot, but that's how I'm gonna flow this speech. Just letting y'all know.
Is God being a kiss up? Is that what God is?
No, God is doing whatever the fuck she wants to do. So there's gonna be two flows.
Okay, so the case and quiet go together.
Okay, yeah. So we put the quiet K on the K stuff. So yeah. Are there any cards that are being sent out or no?
There's none on the.
Okay.
There's none on the. Cool. Everyone's good.
The 1AC affirms the black hole is a sociality that subverts institutional life inhabited by people who all think that we're problems, who are able to be below the frequency of the public that's indicated by their pieces of quasi-evidence. We agree that black people are interpolated as resistant and political inherently in the status quo. Our argument is that we should imagine a sociality and subjectivity that's produced via intrinsic value in the black hole rather than the affirmation of extrinsic value that occurs within the common, right? Which is why our argument is fundamentally about the undercommon. It's an affirmation of the process of being involved in the undercommon in debate. The 1AC is not preoccupied with resistance and revolution as in the public space, and if it is, it's only insofar as we are talking about a kind of sociality that exists below the frequency of debate in the first place. Our argument is then twofold. The first is, yes, there are modes of resistance that we can engage in that spill up from the undercommons into the common. One example of this is the MPJ arguments that me and Khalil made at Harvard. Those arguments were born from me and Jill literally just bullshitting and smoking cigarettes and talking about the way that MPJ serves to militarize debate practices in violent ways, but then that spilled up into us taking that argument to Harvard and reading it against Emory, which produced material change that ends up solving most of their frameworks or their T standards or whatever, because it enables us to form the kinds of coalitionary politics that are able to subvert institutional life in the first place. This is Ferguson in 12. To speak through and with local culture and difference and to absorb the state and capital needed the assistance of the Academy. The Academy was positioned prominently in this moment because of its historic task of representing national culture, multinational firms, emergence, and capital's explicit engagement in local culture and difference. The Academy would become the handbook on the absorption and representation of those differences, the manual for state and capital's unprecedented deliberation. Things academic would provide a new opportunity for power, one that would allow power to foster an entirely new relation between academy, capital, and state. The entrance of local cultures and differences into epistemological representation would also inspire and inform their entrance into law and codification into state and capital's arenas of representation. The U.S. student movements would inspire power to focus its maneuvers on keywords of revolutionary upheavals, minority autonomy, self-determination, and freedom. In doing so, power would attempt to find ways to make the articulation of difference consistent with power's guidance rather than antagonistic to it. In the 60s and thereafter, the archival propensities of power reached out to new horizons, attempting to archive the presumably unarchivable components of anti-racism, feminism, and so on. Power would attempt to invest the radical aims of anti-racist and feminist movements of the 60s and 70s with another logic, capitalizing these movements and their insights, cataloging them in the very institution that those movements were contesting in some relations of power. We're trying to make those movements and their demands into its reason for being. This is how we might interpret a history of power in response to the radical movements of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. The argument that I think this card makes is that if we fail to frame ourselves as being the problem, then we just get sucked up into institutional frameworks. That means that we appeal to things like the politics of respectability, which brings us to the second argument, that the black hole is a kind of social space that refuses the imposition of external forms of valuation, like, for example, their framework arguments that suggest that we have to meet certain institutionalizable norms within the context of debate that doesn't leave any room for the production of intrinsic valuation through the black hole, which is an argument that you can vote on in and of itself because they haven't made arguments about intrinsic value being bad or not accessed in the undercommons in debate. Next, permutations stay in the black hole. This solves their T argument because it enables us to affirm contingent freedoms that occur outside of the context of debate, which is the MPJ argument is probably an example of this. It also solves arguments about the way in which Vita is God, because our argument is about the production of intrinsic value that can occur in quieter spaces that are below the frequency of the way in which the common plays out, I guess. There's also a double bind. There's also a double bind here. Either the criticism like can never access quietness because blackness is always ascribed a kind of performativity, or there are social spaces where quietness is possible, which means that you vote F. Permutation, Jesus walks. Our argument is that God is located, I guess, and the sacred is located at the level of the quotidian rather than at the level of the transcendent, which probably also solves most of their arguments. Yeah. We can go more explicitly to T so that Vita can answer it more specifically. We have an interpretation of the topic. The black hole is a contingent kind of freedom from the tropes that have militarized Khalil's body. Our AF discusses a demilitarization of the African horn of Khalil's relationship to his body and his sexuality, the way that the discourse of pathology of blackness plays out materially and is itself a form of militarism that seeks to discipline him. Not only that, but the fortifications that the negative claims are necessary, the critique and the weaponry that you claim in switch side debate, and especially if you come up with a topical version of the AF, are actually radioactive to us. Demilitarizing ourselves from the need to critique is self-defense alloyed with self-preservation. The refusal of that decision is already a form of demilitarization because we have always been here moving in the surround, which is the 1AC Harney and Moten evidence that speaks to the way that the kind of sub-institutional sociality of debate operates below the frequency of, I guess, the common. What this means about the negative interpretation is that it insists upon the critique of the critical academic and the articulation of the deliberation, dialogue, and fairness and switch side debate that's possible through debate. The negative interpretation will always force us to remilitarize our bodies and will insist that we carry our weapons of critique with us in order to perform a labor that enables the academy, state, and capital to subsist, which is a turn to their criticism arguments because it means that they necessitate that we have public, like, they somehow say that this solves petty debate, but this does not solve in any capacity petty debate. Bitches are gonna be petty. That's just a fact of, yeah, that's just a fact. They also only define the Arab states of the Persian Gulf, which means that we have just a different interpretation, I guess, of a different sector of the topic than they do. Counter-interpretation, though, the AF should defend an interpretation of the resolution, which solves switch side debate and all of their other standards. This is Evans and 12. In a practical sense, SSD at a minimum requires that the affirmative defend the resolution. The central question posed by SSD is whether the affirmative team should be required to defend the resolution even when they, 1, fundamentally disagree with all or part of it, and or 2, are compelled to affirm other ideas because of their personal convictions. The answer to this question must be yes. First, there are multiple ways to skin a cat, and even more ways to affirm the resolution in the world of parametric debate because one need only affirm an interpretation of the resolution and not the resolution writ large. There are rare instances in which there's no interpretation of the resolution that you cannot defend, and these rare instances are most likely the product of lack of creativity and research. There are immense constitutive and instrumental benefits to SSD that cannot otherwise be obtained, and therefore must be required. We would also say then that in this context where their framework has constructed, I guess, evaluative ideals for what it means to be a minoritized person participating in the space of debate, that they've only reinscribed and reproduced the kinds of respectability politics that force us to conform ourselves to extrinsic kinds of valuation rather than affirming intrinsic value, which means that all of their framework arguments are just an evaluative discourse for minority participation that secures the kind of multicultural apparatus of capture of the academy. This is Ferguson and 12. The new character of U.S. institutions, one that would solicit, regulate, and include minorities all at the same time in the divergent circumstances, minority difference, the hegemonic foundations of aesthetic culture would rear their audacious heads and take minorities as objects for whom institutional preparedness would need to be determined. Evaluative systems would emerge that would compromise and prevent various modes of redistribution geared toward the supply of material resource, transformation of discursive arrangements, and the reorganization of social relations and formations because the minority is founded in notions of development, suppression, and exclusion. The category makes institutional access not simply a question of admission and privilege, but one of discipline and exclusion as well. The entrance of minoritized subjects into the dominant institutions of U.S. society provided the conditions for the reassertion of evaluative discourses. Crenshaw, Goton, DePeller, and Thomas discuss how those discourses resulted from a narrowing of the civil rights movement's vision for social reorganization, and institution after institution progressive reformers found themselves struggling over the implementation of integrationist policy with the former administrators of segregation who soon regrouped as an old guard concerned over the deterioration of standards. The same criteria for defining qualifications and merit used during the period of explicit racial exclusion continued to be used so long as they were not directly racial evaluative ideals like qualifications and merit breeds the racial state organized around segregation to a racial state organized around racial reform. Those ideals would mediate between the inclusion and exclusion of the minority, arbitrating between those that were included, the disciplining of those that were included, and the excluding of those that were not. They say that our argument is ahistorical, but this is fundamentally not true. The 1AC is responsive to a particular condition of multiculturalism that suggests that when we don't affirm ourselves as the problem, when we don't affirm ourselves as problematic or criminal towards institutional life, then we only reinscribe our ability to get folded into those institutions, which is a multiculturalism turned to their framework and I guess functionally an Obama dissad that means that we're able to climb the scaffoldings of what it means to be respectable in context of things like debater of the state, but that this actually doesn't provide for any of the material conditions and only reproduces violent shit. Like, for example, Obama has become a warmongering drone striker, which means that we have to have an ability for us to remain and retain criminal relationships towards institutions. They say that debate is good and produces good things. We largely agree with this. However, it then becomes a question of, do we just affirm debate is good, or do we participate in debate as a mode of survival and then affirm alternative orientations towards debate that enable us to subvert and even bring up people behind us in order for them to have access to the same kinds of institutional shit, because we agree that
that resistance in debate is historicized and that there's a historical narrative of like this shit is intergenerational in many different ways, which means that we have to be able to provide resistance in the sphere of debate as some of the groundworks for being able to make space for people to survive in this space, period, right? Like the fact that you united the crowns, Ryan, for example, offers us a way of understanding why it is that we're able to be at the NDT in this capacity in the first place anyway.
Right, ready?
Yeah.
So this Evans evidence is talking about how it's like you can still like affirm a certain understanding of identity or whatever, but it should be tied to some kind of like defense of the resolution. Like
Yep.
it seems that our framework is saying like you can use Afrofuturism, whatever. We're not saying that you have to be the government, but you should have some kind of defense of the resolution. Why
Then
do
I
you
think
go
we
past?
then I think we meet your interpretation,
Okay,
which is
how
why
do
I
you
read
meet
it
that,
on the
though?
we
Like,
meet.
why, like, we're saying, like, you can talk about Afrofuturism, you can have whatever kind of solvency.
Yeah, but
it
is
should
this
be
a
tied to
question?
kind of, like,
But is this a
military
question? But is this a
presence
question?
overseas
But
and
is this
how
a
it's-
question?
I
What is this
actually
question?
have a question about this Evans piece of evidence. The underlined portion right before the next block of argument says that the affirmative team should be required to affirm the topic, including some defense of an action by the United States federal government. Why are you an action by the USFG? If
In
that is
some
true, why do you not
instances,
link
an
to the Obama
affirmation of
policy?
action by the USFG.
Look,
In
y'all,
some
if
instances.
some
Look,
defense.
y'all, if you
If
also-
y'all had asked the
Could
questions of
I answer? Is that okay? Y'all have also conceded that we don't have to affirm the USFG, so I don't know why that's an offensive argument for you. But second of all, if you talk to Rashad about this argument that he had with Casey Harrigan, probably what he would tell you is that his notion is not that all black or red or debaters of color have to defend the USFG, right?
We're
His
not saying
argument is
defend
instead that the
USFG, we're just saying,
USFG
like,
is
You're
not
right.
uniquely
Rashad says that you
anti-black.
don't have to believe that the USFG is good or believe that they can produce.
No, his
it.
argument is
Okay.
explicitly, I'm telling you, he's coached us, y'all.
I
His
know, we
argument
talked
is
to him last night, too.
explicitly, cool. His argument is explicitly that we don't have to defend the USFG and rather that an interpretation of the resolution is
Okay, so
sufficient,
what
which
constitutes
is what
an
the 1AC
interpretation
does.
then?
I think our interpretation of the resolution is an interpretation of the
What
resolution.
was that interpretation?
the ways in
Do you want
which-
me to re-say the we mean?
Sure.
Go for it.
Cool. We say that we meet your idea about what the resolution is because the black hole is an affirmation of contingent freedom from militaristic tropes that militarize Khalil's body.
Okay, okay, sure. So actually about that question then, why is the reading of the app or like getting ballot necessary for that sort of like combating that remilitarization or for that sociality in the undercurrent?
It's
we're
not.
talking about?
We just are gonna do the better debating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why is that? Why is a ballot tied to that? Like, why is it necessarily
Because the
follow
ballot
that?
should go to
Because you
who
did this
does,
performance,
because the
you
ballot
did
should go to
a
who does the
ballot.
better debating. We have a counter interpretation of what the app has to do to facilitate switch side debate. It's very similar to the argument that you all have made.
Sure, so you talk about the production of, or like the recognition of intrinsic value. Why is like Khalil dancing necessary for like this intrinsic value if the 1AC is all about this like intrinsic?
I don't think it is, and I don't think that's our argument.
Then why didn't Khalil dance?
Because Khalil can dance. Khalil's
Because-
very good at dancing. Can Tim dance?
So you can dance, why does that make it necessary for the app?
It doesn't necessarily. I just decided I want to
The
reclassify
question
why
it
is
is
it not part of
specific.
the app?
You say Khalil can dance. We have to ask the question, why does Khalil dance here?
because Khalil wants to dance here.
Okay. I'm
Why is
sending
he
you
the
these
god here?
cards. T and then the
separated
K.
T.
Huh? T and then the K. So
Case.
T
Not
and
the
then
K. Okay, my bad.
So because we put the K on case because Tay said she wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm doing
Yeah,
the K.
until she went to T, I flow everything on the case.
Okay.
Got it. I thought you said T and then the K, so I was like, does this include any of her
No,
stuff?
T and then the case. Yeah.
Okay.
T and then the case.
My bad.
Yeah, you good. Y'all good? Okay. Extend our interpretation to actually defend a contingent action that can be negated, not just a theory. Our impact on weighing turns out of their office and framework then becomes a floor, and not a ceiling that only helps to add to aid and strengthen the discussion of materiality of black that we will win that even if you're right here about the way in which your discussions about things like the undercom is necessary. It's number one is that it's not predictable for the negative because one is not based within the rest. Second is that it's not assume a form of limits that you break down the limits that allow for us to have an in-depth discussion about the ways in which military presumption our approach have conceded our interpretation of military presence that indicates that the military assets are broad segments that we have two different definitions of the military presence for abroad. First is the assets for Persian Gulf indicates there it indicates certain countries. The second argument, the second interpretation that I'll read is the Greater Horn of Africa. The Greater Horn of Africa includes the Burundi, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, South Sudan, and Tanzania, and Uganda. That is a guide to the 12. The Greater Horn of Africa, namely Burundi, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda becomes necessary because it indicates that even if Khalil feels some sort of connection to the Greater Horn of Africa, the military presence that he is talking about in the debate space is not one that is stationed within the Greater Horn of Africa becomes a distinction that becomes necessary. Now you should think, the way in which you should think about this round is a question of what is the best model for debate. Each of their standards operate this as a affirmative interpretation while not looking to any of their offense. They are going to go and train this debate as a topicality without about how we exclude them from the activity. But this debate should be evaluated as a counterplan debate with the topical version of the act being the topic as being a counterplan that resolves the entire act. One is that we should, with the first topical version is that we should remove military presence from all topically designated areas. The second is that the USOG should end military presence in the African Persian Gulf. The active futures mythos feeds into the space world already colonized by the neoliberal commodification. Droning offers a better mythos to black target as James 13. Afrofuturism posits the Western civilization and prison reality. Afrofuturism can scramble linear and temporality. The sort of critique might not pack much of a punch anymore now that the neoliberals have reached the end of the history. Mainstream society seems to be the past, but the existence of future past. Imagine by Afrofuturism is obsolete. The Afrofuturism needs to a new mythology tied not to so much as the modernity, but to drone and the capitalist realism. How it's adapted stuff and accelerationism. Then neoliberalism has upgraded the racial formation. How might Afrofuturist mythologies might be compatible. Droning was a specifically neoliberal form of surveillance that by creating this consistent psychological terror, neoliberal capitalism mobilized speculative effect, affecting registers her relation to the future has been to the euphoria of the fear and the state of fear without foreseeable and withdrawal mythos helps to conceptualize and critique and the role of anti-black contemporary imperialism. We should think about them as something that happens in Pakistan, Yemen, or other Middle Eastern locations. Droning practice certainly exists over there, but stop and frisk and stand your ground. So try getting a constant picture of the fear among targeted P population. Droning reinforce anti-black racism, both before capitalism has a mechanical robots to do so. The same way because of black people of color, and the drones of autonomous that fights to keep the neoliberal capitalism chugging. Probably is the reason why we indicate that you can be granted with a resolution to resolve the effects of the after you read the Ferguson evidence and go for your example of FBJ being able to suffer material violence. One is that we indicate that this doesn't answer our argument about the ways in which you should assume black debate. Our argument is not that you should not have discussions where you debate white people, but our argument is that when you are having discussions that is to include the ways in which black debate can have discussion that can be produce materiality, you should be predictable. Second is that your MPJ example only becomes infinitely regressive because we have asked that will indicate that we should increase our MPJ. What the hell is the negative supposed to negate? How are we supposed to negate that say that MPJ is good? That becomes violent onto our psyche. To the second example of the way in which we become infinitely regressive that you could ask that says that we should reject the name Redskins that Taylor also read before indicates that only leads to a form of fracturing of community because that means that we only have to defend fucked up shit when we negate them becomes problematic in a couple of reasons. First is that you indicate that we're from respectability to behavior. Second is that evidence probably resolves because it indicates that you can tie your identity to the resolution and the discussion of the state without having to believe how the state can operationalize something that we don't make you respectable, but rather you force us to have to be you force us to be problematic. Only these wants to happen in our interpretation. The only interpretation that allows for the education debate form. The community debate is unique because it is based off between class and competition that requires advanced preparation of the issues that will be debated, which means that the has to fall, and the resolutions can be predicted. That is what evidence 15. Debaters benefits from debate requires that they engage topics that they may not otherwise engage. One is more likely to consider their personal convictions outside the debate round than the consider the resolution outside the debate round. Their benefits to defend the interpretation of the resolution that requires you to consider something that you may not otherwise consider special debate. It's a unique opportunity for self-reflexivity. The resolution does not require you to use a pressure identity or conviction, but instead of opportunity to infuse identity into those convictions. The resolution to the solution is an opportunity for you to refine your personal conviction, put your identity in policies instead of relying on exclusively on identity policy. You are essentially opposed to the resolution. You get to dodge those complaints on a negative. Committing yourself to the resolutions, keep preserving your own negative ground to engage in critique of the resolution. Since debate is the only way to organize a fair debate tournament, there must be strict requirements to defend the resolution, allow for fair and predictable negative ground. The architect to all peoples engaged in debates in all debates, such debates facilitates this. Now the limits argument. Even if there's ground to the argument, there's no reason why their type of performance is predictable. It creates an enriched inclusion of everything from tap dancing to discussion about the meaning of fact. This means that it's impossible for us to debate. They kill predictability created about the resolutions, skew operation preparation that we've done before the round. The only risk that they kill the balance of fairness. That second argument that changeable focus is key because military press specifically provides an issue to rally against the critique militarism and voluntary management is abstract terms of not mobilized coalition with focus on specific forms of reforms needed necessary to develop local practical strategies to ultimately upset the racial caste. The incrementally to reduce our reliance on incarceration and enables alternatives to racial caste to be imagined and thought about. Listen, I know that it's pretty and y'all or may not be down with T or framework, but our argument is that we do not maintain the status quo form of model of debate and framework, but rather it is one that's contextualized to the discussion that we are having instead of debate. We're in the debate world, which means that you have to focus on you say permutation first. That permutation, you don't get a permutation in the framework debate because the a priori discussion about the ways in which even if we win that you are not topical, it means that we should never have had this debate in the first place, because you don't get a permutation. Now, that permutation is infinitely regressive. That's impacted because you leads to the race to the top, which is problematic, which means that you should defer to a competing interpretation model that is predictable and allows for the research burden to be skewed and to be resolved. Now, you should extend our specific interpretation and probably resolve your meat argument because it indicates that it is one that's not grounded within the resolution, i.e. our example and definition of the Greater Horn of Africa, as well as that our state of Persian Gulf. Now, the TVA argument, you say TVA doesn't deal with the militarized, but you are wrong, especially in the world where we are reading a piece of solvency evidence about the ways in which your theory can be applied to the resolution to resolve the effect and impacts that you are going for. That means that now you say T doesn't resolve the pettiness argument, LOL. No, you are wrong. It means that it forces to have to tell Khalil that he is not a star, that he is a problem. If he's not a problem, becomes problematic because of only police and personal attacks, i.e. The way in which Khalil can be able to say that, hey, we beat you before it, only fractures the way in which community building can happen in spaces like this. Now, your Obama just said, LOL, your piece of evidence that you read probably is the reason why this is not true, because evidence indicates that you can have a discussion about the ways in which military USFG can make an action without having to internalize. The second is that the TVA results is Obama just said, because your argument is that Obama has led to droning to happen. Yes, our argument that is true is probably the reason why you should have a discussion of the resolution as per the way the TVA can resolve does not go to the K. I am God is the case that I am God is the frame that needs to be in the debate round. The first case after the negative, after the public expression of black resistance, that through performance deficiency, a dominant culture that does not mean the black resistance is inherently bad, but it's dominant for the blackness of white imagination status quo. Blackness is portrayed as monolithic, blackness public is solely performance resistance, continuing this image perpetuates the dominant control of perception of black instead of the self-defining black identity with an understanding of the nuances of interior black life. That's Noel 9. The West suffers from a forgetfulness of being to which we alluded from the Western philosophy is the present and past, and the present philosophically speaking, the West lacks a transcendent Western rationalism has been placed in the cogito outside of the empirical mental life was no longer organically connected and interwoven the cosmic such reality split into the two separate spheres that of the mind, which is contained in the intellectual determination that all of the being was received from them. Of what I am wondering whether it's the dehumanization of Africans and the third world countries people do say colonialism was some route reflecting the reflection of Western philosophy and the problem of being the history carries an object significance that schools that refers to the present philosophers, philosophers, historical location, affections or conceptualization of the historical location comprising not of the events of which philosophers are consciously aware, but in addition, everything that gives addition and distinction in his or her epoch, therefore it's almost impossible to read philosophy as one mode through historical reality. Historical reality becomes conscious.
Okay, that was a lot.
You can mark it at epoch if you don't want that sentence.
Which part is that?
No,
Distinction to his or her epoch. Yeah. Yeah.
let me just.
Oh no.
Oh, there it is. Good for cross-eyes.
Yep.
What's the public?
What do you mean, what is the public?
How do we know if something is public or not?
I guess we will indicate that every space has the ability to be the public and the private. Our
So
argument
what
is
would
not
create
that
a distinction
our
between
argument
what makes
is
this
not-
space the public?
our argument is not that you should not be in the public. Rather, Kwashi creates a distinction between being in the public and still being interior, right? Our argument is that there are things and performances that app has done that subject the public to a form of interpolation that becomes problematic.
Why is
because
that
it-
uniquely true of the affirmative and not the negative?
Because the I am God conversation that happens when it's with the interior, that can happen within the public without ever
like
being
colloquial
subversive.
dancing is not interior, or
No,
colloquial reading
it's
cards is
not.
not interior.
No.
Why is
Why
it not?
not?
Why am I not allowed to have an
So
interior?
the first link argument, I think Tim is gonna do all of the link stuff, but the first argument that I will indicate.
Does the link shit? Go
Huh?
ahead.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
don't even know what that was, but the first argument was the oppositional pedagogy that your Halberstam evidence indicates that we need to have in order to resist. The Halberstam evidence becomes problematic because it is a way in which those things get politicized against Black culture as it means that Black culture always becomes resistant, i.e. inferior. That only leads to things like the ways
Why
in which
is
how is that?
resistant the same as inferior? Why does that produce the same?
Yeah, so modernity, our argument is that the ways in which the white American psyche operates is that it's able to use and flatten culture in order for its own political means. So you are right that oppositionality
So it
may not
sounds like-
necessarily mean.
That's okay.
So wait,
That's
wait,
okay.
wait, 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 wait. Because I dance and make the spectacle of myself, it interpolates me to the white gaze, but yet your performance doesn't do any of that. How is that not linked back to you? Why am I a less respectable form of
A
self-affirmation
less
than you are?
respectable form. I don't even know what that means, but I don't think that that's our argument. But
Okay. Cool.
I have another question. It
I could
sounds
answer
like
that
that's cool if you don't.
argument.
It sounds like your argument relies on the public being a place in which Black people are subjected to the white gaze. Is that correct?
I think your argument also assumes that, but sure.
Sure. So how is it that then that the affirmative has not solved that question?
Because you create a Black flattening of flattening of culture that allows for
But
the
why is that? But why is that true if
Unification
you've
of all of
affirmed if
those
the
forms
entire
of
app is about the affirmation
of
of a
undercommons.
sub-institutional space?
Yeah, our argument is that those sub-institutional spaces don't apply in spaces where those get interpolated, i.e. the Kwashi evidence.
But then that doesn't even make sense because you've said we should have
Sure.
a politic of interiority, and
Yes.
you've also said
A
that.
politic of interiority does not assume a subcategory that exists within public spaces. I think it's an internal conversation that assumes that one.
So
we
we
have,
should have
so like, let me,
individualistic
can we, no, let me try to
interiority?
clarify this as much as I can. The argument is,
Go ahead.
Okay, so the different argument is that the 1AC indicates that there is a mode in which subjectivity has been taken away from Blackness that allows for the way in which we should create undercommons. Our argument is that those subjectivity was never taken away from Blackness. To start from that positionality allows for one,
Why
the way.
is that true of the
I wasn't
harms
done.
of the 1AC?
In order for you to create an undercommon, you have to assume something that you are removing yourself from. Our cogito, this had, i.e. the card I just read, indicates that to start from that positionality assumes a way in which the Western slavery took away subjectivity or took away any form of
Okay.
internal
Okay,
value
I
that you have to get back.
I understand.
We indicate that that's
Anything
not
else you
true.
want to say, Tim? Say it in one.
The one on our card just sent out.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know you ready to go.
I forgot that there was a speech right after process.
You want to take a dust break?
No,
Okay.
You can take a break.
I'm perfect.
Okay.
Hush, Tim. You can take a break.
I think he asked a valid question. He's confused. He's confused.
I need some coffee.
I need some silence.
We'll get some prep time after this. I'm not the one.
Actually, if anybody gonna make you match the match, probably right. Like I'll.
Is everybody good?
Tim a better person than me. I would just tell him to be quiet.
I'm ready.
Like when you start talking, then shut up.
That's not always true for Hadassah. So Hadassah, I'm gonna need you. Yeah.
Wait, why did they say my God?
I
Alright.
just muted it. It's back on now.
Starting on the permutation, the first reason they don't get a perm is that this is a method debate. They have chosen the method of the public expression of Afrofuturism, whereas the negative is starting from the point of interiority, which means that the public expression will never allow to be flattened in the status quo. They have started from the method of the black hole as a form of erasure of the status quo, whereas the critique is based on the preservation of the interior in the status quo. These are fundamentally opposed methodological claims. Now, this is also an epistemological debate because the app must seek a new sort of agency in another world because the squo world has taken it, whereas the critique starts from the epistemology that humanity was never stolen from the black body, that it cannot be retaken because it was never taken in the first place. The idea that it was taken is ahistorical, and it's the perpetuation of the belief that feeds into the homogenized, commodified image of blackness as only exterior that can be contained and appropriated, which allows for the erasure of the interior. Now that's going to be crucial to the link work because that means that their attempt to gain some sort of transcendence of the status quo world is a link to the K. Their Afrofuturism is based on a pessimistic vision of blackness in this world. The 2AC explanation of the sociality as only existing in that the people who constitute it or understand themselves as a problem is a link because that erases the historicity of blackness. Now, Kwashi says that black women are always motivated by the interior secrecy that allowed for this, that allowed for their interior humanity to be able to go untainted. That is something that the affirmative tries to erase. It should not be based on this form of reactive politics of reacting to the world of status quo and trying to get rid of it, but rather going back into the interior that doesn't allow for this exterior interpolation. Now, this leads to the inherent oppositionality of the affirmative being a problem. Their Halberstam evidence talks for the need for an oppositional pedagogy, was something that they conceded in cross-sex that they were. Kwashi talks about how this oppositionality always positions blackness in antagonism to whiteness, and blackness cannot exist in itself because it's always put in this form of reactive state. It always exists prior to whiteness, in reaction to whiteness, rather than something that has already always existed. The app puts in that position of reactivity, which is a step away from the alternative need of being able to start from the oneness, start from the humanity that always existed in blackness. Now, the after forms of resistance maintains the system of expressiveness that constitutes an erasure of blackness in public discourse. Such a move reinscribes the status void of humanity and freedom. Kwashi and 12, quiet will need to be understood as quality or sensibility of beings, better for expression. Expressiveness quiet instead is the expressiveness of the interior. The quietest person represents the broad scope of his or her life. Is interrogated, expresses something past the interior beyond the public, faces stereotypes and limited imagination. The locus in which self-interrogation takes place, the interior is expansive, creative, impulsive, and dangerous, and is not something what's controlled, but instead has to be taken in its own terms. Interior is neither resistant to over nor over-determined by the behaviors of the outer world. The interior is articulate and meaningful. This social impact, quiet then, the inexpressive that can appear publicly, have an effect, social and political meaning, challenge and counter social discourse, yet none of this is an aim or essence. Quiet is an expressive that is not consumed with resistance, silence, often denotes something that is oppressed or oppressed. Quiet is presence that can be expressed, but its expression is often based on refusal, protest, not wildness. The interest in quiet arises because the trouble posed by public expressive and public with the assumption of black culture's predominant resistance characterization ends up simplifying blackness. The problem here is not expressiveness, but that black expression is so tethered what is public to a discourse of resistance, but there is still an important question about the other qualities of black culture that are overwhelmed by resistance status. What else beyond resistance can we say about black culture? Subjectivity of the quarrel is the way public is a chokehold on black culture. It's hard to imagine conceptualization of blackness that doesn't already envision itself in the humanness of the struggle to be free with the concept that in public just this precisely the need for a concept of interiority that can support representation of blackness that is irreverent, messy, coupled with representation that of great human texture, specificity of the broad capture of resistance can offer the idea of an aesthetic of quiet might seem forward and counterintuitive of black culture, but is not. There is a strong contemplative tradition of black culture, tradition inspired by the existential struggle of living within the confines of racial identity, that our dignity, an invitation to consider black cultural identity from somewhere other than conceptual places that we have come to accept this exploration of this reach toward the inner that quiet makes possible accept the undisputed dignity of its humanity. Now, this is the reason why the negative does not link to the but the affirmative is always going to, because the negative can exist in public spaces, but it's not tied to this question of expressiveness. Expressiveness of the 1AC for a ballad means they're always going to be based in that question of resistance. Now, they say that they don't need the ballad, but that just leads to a presumption argument. T proved that they don't do anything. But even if the futurism of the app is a good methodology, it does not mean that it necessarily needs to be used for a valid, that the approval endorsement of valid is going to do anything for it. Another does supercharge the Khalil dancing argument, because an essential part of their critique of modernity is based on that sort of expressiveness in which blackness always homogenizes something that needs to be able to explain itself to the public, needs an audience in order to be able to tell itself what it is. Now, this publicness is going to be key, because blackness interiority is always erased through that vision of expressiveness, of dramaticness and loudness that is Kwashi's argument. Now, this is not a double bind, because Vita's performance in 1 and C cannot be interpolated as resistance, did not seek an oppositional pedagogy, the affirmative did, cannot be connected to any sort of ideological focus. And the 1AC, that is the reason why the cross-sex of the 1AC was problematic when Khalil asked Vita, if you look at yourself in the mirror, how do you know that you are God? One, that assumes that Vita cannot know internally without being told externally that she is God. And second, it assumes that Vita has to be able to make the interior godness of herself exterior to be able to have any value in this debate round, which is what kills the possibility of the interiority being able to be the essential nature of blackness or humanity to be already existing, rather than something that has to be taken back through a form of publicness. This sort of dependency on an audience, the dependency on the public and listening to this story is the reason why you should not vote for the affirmative.
We can still lose the alternative and win the links because of this so I'm going to take out to the half.
We have 809.
second part.
Oh.
Extended double blind is not answered in the block either.
Sorry,
Reader.
what? Start over. What? Like, I don't even know what you said.
It's in the double bind. I got you, Khalil.
Thank you.
My bad. You gotta,
I will be
gotta know
clearer.
What's up?
I'll be clear.
Yeah.
Starting now. Extended double bind is not answered in the block either. Reader is also interpolated by the public space of black debate is similar. Is this fine enough for you? It similarly is attached to drama, loudness, and opposition because of quasi evidence, tautological claims about the nature of the public, which means you vote out because the K hasn't made an argument that has no alternative to the interpolation of black as resistance, or if it is not interpolated in certain quiet spaces below the frequency of the common, even if those spaces are internal, which means that her process of affirming intrinsic value is similar to the process of the black hole, and that you cannot vote on the permutation state in the black hole, which doesn't link to one another because functionality perm, because it's functionally perm do the app. We are not in a ratio of historicity of blackness, but rather responsive to the contemporary condition of multicultural inclusion indicated by the Ferguson evidence. We saw this argument about blackness existing in antagonism to whiteness because our argument with the politics of the surround, which is the one you see Harlem on the description of the 11 comments, is the blackness is both prior to and excessive of that which is demarcated in as such, meaning that white people are the ones who designate blackness, but the black hole sociality that's imminent towards that shit. It's not merely reactive, but an invasive maneuvering that exceeds reaction on this delusion, y'all. Motion is delusion, y'all. He's interested in imminent sociality on pettiness. Barlow reads a USFG app and is still petty as fuck. This proves your argument people are going to be petty because before debate, people were petty as fuck, and it was a mode of connection, not a destruction of coalitional politics. They don't have an internal links to impacts on the T arguments. Onto T. The greater horn in Africa hypersexual means the hypersexualization of black bodies is why they are militarized, i.e., the ways in which the African horn interprets is co-constituted with my body, the African horn, i.e., my penis, and the ways in which like black bodies are constantly hypersexualized, which is why they put all the blackness, which is why it constantly needs to die. This is one of the many ways in which violence operates against the black body, but it's definitely a ways in which like if we work on affirming a new type of sociality by which like that type of like violence isn't like committed upon the black body, then maybe that might it might solve the ways in which we deem certain bodies fungible. Also, another interpretation of the resolution is gravity is normalized. It dictates the way violence is interpreted and perceived. You arm a nuke and you let gravity do the work from there. Violence is interpreted in many ways upon the black body, as in like bullets gravitate towards the black body. Women getting raped on a day-to-day basis is considered normal. All these things considered normal because that's the way the earth flows on a perpetual axis. All these things are considered as just like the ways in which like it's just the ways in which like the day operates. No one thinks to challenge these modes of violence because like it's just the ways in which like our bodies are being fungible and like it doesn't really matter. That's what we're challenging. And the new type of sociality of the black hole means that we can challenge those modes of like those tropes and that politics refused by which we refuse the ways in which our bodies are interpolated to mean like March for Death, for instance. Also another extension of the ways in which we meet the resolution, the black hole removes people from the topic area. They are no longer militarized. They're in the black hole. So I don't see how we don't solve for military violence. All the people that they've named in the topic area, all those countries, they're in the black hole because the people of color have elected to leave the black hole. Also, the people elected to stay there, then that's fine. But at the same time, like, yeah. Also, sociality. Think of the black holes as people just chilling. The ways in which people go outside and smoke and chill and split the shit. We exist within the academy as a subset, posited outside, but in and of how we interact with one another. Vita has posited my performance. So like, it's just like disavowing the black hole just means that like whenever like people go outside to like smoke or like whenever like people like are partying like the rooms, etc., it just means that like those are the ways in which like we aren't allowed to exist, and that is the biggest threat to the reality right there. Black people getting together and just saying like We don't need to have ways in which like you don't need to have a degree to interact. We can just all come together and like think of alternative ways of like politically engaging or socially engaging, i.e. how MPJ originated. Vita has positive my performance and I want to see it being subjected to the white gaze and complacent connection between blackness and resistance and then inferiority. Because I've subjected myself to that gaze and violence of black people, all black people, so it means that I'm always gonna hang up for the negative reads of black body. However, because Vita says she is God, it is more respectable and that doesn't link her back to her Quan Shi evidence. If Tim believes the Afrofuturist vision is vague, then we have done our job because white people should not know the ways in which we plan to exist in social life because they will always try to destroy it. On the perm, they also dropped a perm which says that stay in the black hole. The black hole exists outside when niggas smoke with cigarettes and it exists when people play spades because you don't need a degree to engage in whatever. You also when I said earlier that I said when I said that they lose, it doesn't subvert coalition or community building. It is just shit talk. If losing to someone is a reason to not fuck with them, then you pathologize failure, which means that your movement is always predicated or foregrounded in success, which means that in terms of sociology of black hole, it means that it's okay to not be successful. It's okay to be a failure. It's okay to not always be correct. That is a world in which we exist in the black hole. That means that those types of like superior knowledge practices that posit black bodies as unintelligible in the first place are not going to exist anymore. Topical version of that. We remove soldiers from the topic area. We remove military presence from the Persian Gulf. I mean, those are the ways in which they interpret the topical version of the app. I don't see how the app doesn't do this when we remove people from the topic areas and also allow whiteness to destroy itself. This is also a freaking evidence. It's indicating because it says that when we try to engage an institution, politics the institution to assimilate us and make us produce violence, i.e. Obama, which means that that's probably a good idea that we not interact with institutions in some ways other than criminality because that's multicultural. And in Vita's performance as God, she posits herself as like Condoleezza Rice trying to like bang on the door of the White House Situation Room with her pro-war phone finger. Also, Vita is God. How does she know how the app works and how to engage it? God is omnipotent. God is all-knowing. God is everywhere. God is everything. God was there when we wrote the app. I don't see how God isn't present in this room right now when she's trying to engage in like this fairness of this app. Also, the other comments are necessary because we all know it goes down in the DMs. I don't understand how like the ways in which we engage in debate doesn't function in the undercomments. This exists everywhere. This is not like a holistically new concept or like a wholly new radical one. It's one that we affirm that type of sociality can be a ways in which we can engage in debate. The onset of debate, we are in the subset of the undercomments because this debate space is one of the ways in which we can have these discussions. Also, yeah, that was pretty much it. I couldn't find anything else to talk about.
Okay, we have 10 minutes, I believe. T and then a K. Or case. So the first argument I have on the T is extend the double bind stuff, and then the next argument is the people become black people are petty stuff. Okay. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna just flow straight down.
You could do that. It don't matter. I'm just letting y'all know this is the argument. Okay.
Sorry.
Alright. Y'all ready?
Oh, fuck, I just dropped my pen. Hold on. Okay.
Thank you. You should view the TV as a counterplane that resolves the Athens conceded by the one yard extend. The James evidence makes a couple of arguments that are going to be key indicates the Afrofuturist stories that use alien abduction or mythology through space having been co-opted and been commodified and used as a state to perpetuate neoliberalism and violence all becomes a solvency take out to the Athens. Their impacts begin to indicate that this turns your impact only becomes inevitable in a world where your storytelling of the black hole becomes a way in which the neoliberalism is able to sustain itself. Second is that the use of Jones and Afrofuturist stories is better. It's a criticism of the role of anti-blackness in contemporary anti-imperialism. Probably the reason why we resolve anti-imperialism through the through the TV. Yeah, second, the third argument it makes. Can somebody open the door for? Yeah, the third argument says can you can use drones to abroad to understand and explain how violence happens locally, but how violence happens, but starting from the local will always fail in resolving. Now the double bind argument you have conceded that T is a prior argument, which is that if we win that you are not topical. The reason why we should have never had this debate in the first and second is that we will go for the alternative, which is all your double bind arguments, but I'll do more of that on the K floor. Now, you have also considered that competing interpretation is the better way in which you should view this debate as good because one, it resolves the infinitely regressive argument. There's also conceded because it limits is good for better and in-depth discussions about the topic. Now the definition argument. So Khalil makes two arguments that indicate that he meets. One is that Greater Horn of Africa is his penis. One is that you have conceded a predictability argument, which may indicate that it is not predictable for me to recognize the Greater Horn of Africa is your penis. Second, you have conceded the definition that we read in the truancy about what the Greater Horn of Africa is in conscious of the resolution becomes the reason why you're not topical. Second, the next argument is that the next argument is that they remove black people from the militarized spaces. LOL, that's not the topic. The topic is to remove military presence from the spaces, not to remove the people who are being militarized. There is a distinction. Is a reason why your argument is also not predictable and explodes the research burden of the act, which is also conceded by the 1 yard. Now this is bad. This is better. This is bad for a couple of reasons. First is the ground. We need to be able to test the app in order for help. So this is good to help them become better debaters and activists. As per your Ferguson evidence, we indicate that we are the only internally to have access to your Ferguson piece of evidence in the academy because we force you to have to be able to be ready when you get into the real world to be able to contest or debate people like Obama or Condoleezza Rice, which is the reason why we are going to be better. The second argument is topic education. You have conceded that this resolution is necessary to be able to engage because it explains how anti-blackness, lots of the targeting of bodies and how we have drawn bodies abroad. It becomes a material impact that you don't resolve with the counterplane of the TVA does resolve. The next argument is that the TNT is a floor and not a ceiling, which means that you get to do all of your Afrofuturism and your black hole stuff in concept of the resolution as long as you tie that to a usual clause and extend the Rashad Evans piece of evidence that's also conceded by the 1 year indicates that switch out debate is necessary to be able to teach the ways in which to have indicates that you can tie your identity to the resolution, but without having to personally believe that the state is a good actor. He indicates that the teacher should be able to have to defend the opposite side in order so that you are better well prepared to be able to defend your side when you have to be able to have real debates in the real world. Now, your argument is that shit talking pettiness is inevitable, but our argument is that that's not our argument is not that pettiness is problematic, but the type of pettiness becomes in a world where your forces me to have to tell you that you are not a star or that you are not a black hole becomes problematic because it leads to psychological response. The second impact argument that's also conceded is that you force negative people to have to defend fucked up shit like MPJ is good or that the name of the Redskins is good, which is going to be a psychological impact. That's also conceded by the one of the next argument I'm going to answer is that Obama just said, and the Condoleezza Rice or just said, LOL, now that argument is probably fucked up for you to be able to call me Condoleezza Rice in the world where we indicate that you're, and that is the personal attacks that I am talking about, the ways in which you make petty fracture community. The second is that you have to consider that TVA resolves the Obama just said, especially in the world where your impact is that Obama drones people. That is a reason why we should probably resolve the material effect of droning through the topical version of the act. He becomes a voter because of all of the things above. Now go to the case arguments. I won't go for the alternative because all of the offense of the 1 ER is all of the offense of the R1 ER is only specific to why the alternative also becomes interpolated but never answers the links argument. I will go for them because as independent links to this as to the app. First is that even if they are right that the undercommons is good, we have posed a question of one, why does it need to happen here, and two, can debate ever be an undercommon? We have said no to both questions. We have said no in such a ways in which we should choose to engage in this. This cannot be normalized view of blackness dysfunction as a pick out of the of ask performance in this space. This implicates and frames the entire debate for a couple of reasons. The one of our answer concedes a response to my argument, which is impacted by the Noel piece of evidence in the 2NC because the independent reason why you vote negative. First, that indicates that as oppositional pedagogy relies on the status quo use that idea that that indicates that black is inferior, i.e. the act indicates that we should affirm problemhood. This flight is black culture where all black people are seen as problem to society. This leads to a couple of material impacts that they don't resolve. When black people are seen as problems, they are criminalized, and that is painted onto our skin. This is what leads to things like surveillance, second leads to things like stop and frisk and mass incarceration. The alternative, the TVA resolves these things because we have indicated the alternative is able to resolve anti-black violence when it comes to things like imperialism. And the next argument is that you will always be reactionary and always dependent on the white American psyche. That is the one in our link argument about the ways in which you are a form of expression that can always be commodified in the argument that answers all of your Debabai and performativity argument. We don't pathologize you, but we resolve the impact of pathologization as per the T arguments.
Okay, I have 304. I'm starting. Like I said, I flowed straight down. Most of my arguments, like,
I think we all did too.
beautiful. Okay, excellent. That's fabulous.
We're not all on the same page by now. There's some trouble.
But
Good one. That was a good joke. Okay. Y'all are good? Okay. Y'all are good.
Wow, I didn't realize that was a bad one. Sorry, go ahead.
The 1AR offers quite a bit of clarity about the black hole and the kind of sociality that we affirm that I don't think is answered by the 2NR. We are particularly talking about its relationship to institutional space, as in it subverts and is below the frequency of institutional life. Khalil also extends some harms of the 1AC that I don't think their topical version of the affirmative is able to deal with, such as the way that quotidian acts of violence and debate are normalized in the status quo, which means that we normalize things like anti-blackness and rape, for example, in context of the debate space, which is not something that they have grappled with. We affirm being the problem is that which produces the black hole kind of sociality. This has two impacts that the negative doesn't contend with in the 2NR that are extended into the 1AR. The first is the production of intrinsic value, because we say that blackness is prior to and excessive of its designation as such. Blackness is the definition of immanence, which is the 1AC Harney and Mode evidence about the politics of the surrounded as a sociality that seeks to leave white people behind to die slowly on earth from like Mayo overdose or something. But the point of our argument is that it's not preoccupied with whiteness, which solves their spotty extension of the piece of Noel evidence and is a conceded 1AR argument. Second argument is that it refuses the respectability politics that enables people to climb the multicultural scaffolding of institutions, which is true of both topicality and the K, because topicality is about instituting a regimented and normative standard of debate that says that there can only be one relationship to the topic that is valuable or important. When we all read affirmatives that don't meet that burden, the impact is that you all are invested in producing fucking Viva Carthicians rather than having a resistance to the kind of violent structures that are going down in debate in the first place, which is a reason why we shouldn't just affirm our status as people of color, but should rather affirm sub-institutional socialities that enable us to subvert and destroy the kind of multicultural edifices of debate in the first place, which is our argument about the way that MPJ is born in sub-institutional socialities and then our critique of MPJ is born in sub-institutional socialities and then spills up to influence. Like right now that we read that argument against Emory, they started prefing Damo, which doesn't mean qualitatively that we've solved the problem of anti-blackness, but does mean that we can produce material steps through affirmations of the undercommons in debate. That's also true of the critique argument, because as Khalil points out, there's a way in which affirming Vita's quietness just pathologizes him as a loud black person who's then demarcated without his consent by white people. All of these arguments are solving both the extension of the Noel evidence and operate as a turn to your performance in this debate, because what you all have said is that we have to perform within the particular genre of debate that you say is important, which our Ferguson evidence describes as just a mode of multicultural incorporation and a manifestation of multicultural power that invites us to partake through invoking the standards of participation, just the way that the negative has invoked. These are the standards of participation that you have to engage in debate. We say perm stay in the black hole solves the entirety of this strategy. They don't have an answer to it in the 2NR. Our argument is that we should just stay in the black hole, that it enables the kind of sub-institutional social space that we think is true of this particular debate space in general. The 2NR is also very poorly impacted. It ignores the way that the institution of debate itself, as an instantiation of the academy, disciplines inclusion as a means of its multicultural edificial power, which means that you have conceded that you all reinscribe respectability politics. This is also a better form of historical analysis, because it shows the way that movement building fails when it defers to respectability. A good example of this is the way that Rosa Parks was chosen over Claudette Colvin to be the figurehead, I guess, of the civil rights movement, right? Claudette Colvin wasn't chosen because she was 16 years old and pregnant, but your entire notion that there should be standards under which we're able to participate in space has turned all of your standards that you actually don't impact, right? Because then your argument about why we should have good conversations in debate instead becomes an argument about we should have conversations that support the reconstruction or reinscription of multicultural respectability norms in debate. The 1AR also applies Ferguson as a disadd to the topical version of the affirmative, because the topical version of the affirmative then becomes a mode of multicultural incorporation, i.e. we read the topical version of the app and then have process debates where people are like, well, we should do the China counterplan or the budget disadd or whatever the fuck. Our argument is that rather than doing that,
Is that rather than doing that, we should read our affirmative. Also, we've read the same AF all year. Y'all have definitely debated us on the AF. You definitely knew what the AF was when we said the black hole AF in disclosure, which probably solves most of your limits arguments as well as other standards. Yeah. And Ferguson also has very explicitly turned your standards of inclusion that are not well impacted out in the 2NR, because what you all have said is that we need limits. Limits is not an impact. You have said we need predictability. That's not Khalil's penis. That's not an impact. Your best impact arguments are the ones that are attached to your topical version of the AF counterplan, and our argument turns those impacts because that means that the burden is on you to then prove that fiated debate somehow resolves those questions. She says it's fucked up to call her Condoleezza Rice. It's an argument about the way that respectability functions when you adhere to multicultural norms. It's not a pathologization of you. And also, clearly Vita is a little bit in her feelings about losing in round 8 at CETA last year, but that AF about the Redskins was also a structural criticism about the erasure of Native people in debate and is not about this debate, which means that you all shouldn't vote on this argument about the Redskins. That's absurd. Our argument is not that you have to negate. There are a list of arguments, Vita, as you know. There are a list of arguments that link to this affirmative that I'm not going to give you because we're on the live stream right now at the NDT, but there are a list, genuinely a list of arguments that link to this AF that you could have read in this debate. And you decided to read a non-competitive topical version of the affirmative.
Yeah, half the people in debate say I suck and I could beat this AF by myself.
Right. I'm good.
Debate.
Debate. Try to get one more.